Conjoined twins. I thought I finally found someone who saw just me. I found the videos on his laptop, 57 files labeled with dates and times, and I clicked the first one before I understood what I was looking at. It was us, my sister Naomi and I, sleeping in Marlo's bed 2 weeks ago, but the camera angle was wrong. Every single one was zoomed in on our conjoined torso, on the place where our two bodies merge at the ribcage. Not my face, not my eyes, not the parts of me I thought he'd been looking at all these months. Just our connection, framed and centered like it was the only thing that mattered. I heard the shower turn off down the hall and my hand froze on the mouse. He'd told me I was beautiful while looking directly into my eyes. He'd held my hand on the right side, my side specifically, and made me feel like an individual person for the first time in my life. 3 months of believing someone finally saw past what made us different. The bathroom door opened and his footsteps moved across the tile. I clicked to the next video. Us getting dressed yesterday morning. Same angle. Zoomed in on our shared body. Then another video. Us in the kitchen making breakfast. Another. Us in the shower. Naomi looked up from her book beside me and asked what was wrong. I couldn't answer because I was counting the files, and there were dozens more I hadn't opened yet. Marlo's footsteps moved into the hallway. 30 seconds until he walked into this office and saw us staring at his screen. I thought he'd been different from all the others. I thought he'd finally seen me as just me. Naomi and I had stopped trying to date 3 years ago after too many disasters. Men who fetishized us, who asked invasive questions, who treated us like a curiosity instead of people. We built a safe life working remotely. Me in software development, Naomi in graphic design. Our apartment had custom furniture and accessible bathrooms. It was small but safe, and I'd convinced myself that mattered more than connection. Then I met Marlo at a disability advocacy event in September, and he asked about my work instead of my body. He introduced himself as Marlo Brennan, worked in adaptive technology consulting, and treated us like two distinct people who happened to share a body. When he asked for my email, I gave it without the usual suspicion. Marlo became a constant presence over the next month through texts and coffee meetings. He told us about his 7-year-old daughter Emma, who lived with his ex-wife Rachel. When he asked me to dinner, Naomi immediately offered to bring headphones and a book to give us privacy. Our first date was at an Italian restaurant, and Marlo made me feel seen as an individual for the first time in my life. 6 more dates followed. He learned which hand to hold, how to position himself during conversations, and discovered I loved bad action movies. He met Emma, who accepted us immediately. 3 months in, Marlo told me he was falling in love with me. I cried and said I loved him too, that he'd given me hope I'd stopped believing was possible. 2 weeks later, Marlo asked me to move in. He'd found a house with accessible features, space for both of us to work. Naomi encouraged me to say yes, said Marlo seemed genuine, and we couldn't live in fear forever. We moved in January, and everything felt almost too perfect. Marlo made coffee every morning, gave us space when needed, and integrated Emma into our lives. I started imagining marriage, a future, everything I'd never thought possible. The first warning sign came in March when Marlo angled his laptop screen away as I walked past. Small movements, nothing dramatic, but they accumulated. 2 weeks later, he closed his laptop quickly when I entered his office, said he was planning a birthday surprise. Naomi noticed too, asked if something felt wrong. We agreed we were overthinking things. On a Wednesday in late March, Marlo left to get Emma, and I made a decision that changed everything. His laptop was on the kitchen table, password protected. I typed in his password and found a folder labeled Personal Archive. Inside were video files, us in the kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. Every private moment since we'd moved in, filmed without our knowledge. The camera angles were zoomed in on our conjoined torso, not our faces. 57 files this month alone. Folders going back to when we'd started dating. He'd been documenting us from the beginning. Then I found the Distribution Archive subfolder. Spreadsheets with website names, upload dates, payment amounts. Thousands of dollars per month. I searched the site names and found Marlo's profile. Authentic collector, specializing in rare documented content featuring unique physical presentations. His account showed videos of us with tens of thousands of views, comments talking about our body in graphic terms. People paying monthly subscriptions to watch conjoined twins exist. Marlo had been selling us for months. I found his messages with other content creators, sharing tips on camera placement and maintaining trust. One message from 4 months ago said, "Met the conjoined twins today. They're perfect for the audience. Starting the relationship building now." The day we met. Every moment had been calculated exploitation. Naomi asked what was wrong, and I turned the laptop toward her. She went white watching the videos, seeing the evidence that Marlo had been using us. But then something strange happened. Naomi closed the laptop and her expression shifted into something I couldn't read. She said we needed to be careful, wait, think through options before confronting Marlo. Her voice was too calm, almost rehearsed. I stared at her confused because Naomi was usually impulsive, wanting immediate action. Why was she suddenly advocating patience? Marlo and Emma walked in, and Naomi squeezed my hand, whispering we should act normal. Emma showed us her drawing, and Marlo asked about dinner, completely relaxed. Naomi smiled and engaged like nothing was wrong. I followed her lead because I didn't know what else to do, but I felt insane pretending everything was fine. That evening after Emma went to bed, Naomi suggested watching a movie. I sat rigid with tension while Marlo touched me, knowing he'd been filming us, selling us. Naomi kept glancing at me with warning looks. Around 11, Marlo went to bed, and Naomi said she needed to finish work. The moment his door closed, I demanded to know why we were pretending everything was normal. Naomi's expression changed into something cold I'd never seen before. She said there was something I needed to know. She'd found Marlo's videos 3 weeks ago when using his computer. She'd seen everything. The recordings, the websites, the money. And she hadn't told me. I asked why, my voice barely working. Naomi said because she'd confronted Marlo privately, and he'd explained it in a way that made sense. He'd told her the videos documented our lives as individuals, showing us as separate people. I stared at her because that made no sense. The videos emphasized our connection, not our individuality. Naomi shrugged defensively. She said Marlo had convinced her he had good intentions. I asked why she hadn't told me, why she'd let me discover it this way. Naomi was quiet before saying something that made my blood run cold. She hadn't told me because she thought I'd overreact, because she thought Marlo and I needed to break up anyway, because she wanted him for herself. I asked her to repeat that. Naomi turned to face me, defiant. She said she'd been in love with Marlo for months, since maybe our second or third date. She'd watched me fall for him while feeling the same feelings, but she knew he saw her as just my sister, someone to tolerate, to access me. So she'd stayed quiet and made herself small while dying inside every time he kissed me, held my hand, told me he loved me. When she found the videos, she'd seen an opportunity to destroy my relationship, so maybe she could have a chance. I couldn't breathe. My own sister had been secretly in love with my boyfriend and had manipulated everything to break us up. I asked if there was more. Naomi hesitated and admitted yes. She and Marlo had been talking privately for 2 weeks since confronting him. At first about how to handle the situation, but their conversations had shifted. Marlo had confessed he'd always been aware of her, found her beautiful, wished things were different. They'd kissed once, 4 days ago when I was in the shower. Marlo had said what he felt for Naomi was deeper than what he felt for me. They'd decided to wait, let me discover the videos naturally so the relationship would end without Marlo being the villain. Then, after appropriate time, they could be together. I asked how she could betray me so completely. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed hard. She said I'd had 26 years of being the primary person, making choices that affected both of us without considering her needs. Every boyfriend meant she had to make herself invisible, sit with headphones and pretend not to exist, so I could feel individual. She was tired of being the supporting character. Marlo was the first man who'd seen her as a person. She wasn't giving that up just because I saw him first. She'd spent her life accommodating me, and now it was her turn to be selfish. Her words broke something fundamental in me. My sister had been harboring resentment for years. Every sacrifice to give me privacy on dates, she'd been resenting me. I started crying and told her she'd destroyed us. Naomi cried too, but said she wasn't sorry enough to give up Marlo. She loved him, and he loved her back. I heard Marlo's footsteps and realized he'd been listening. He appeared in the doorway, looking at Naomi first. He said he was sorry, that he'd never meant for things to get complicated. The filming had been wrong, but meeting us had changed him. He'd fallen for me initially, but the more time with Naomi, the more he'd realized she was who he actually wanted. He suggested maybe we could all still live together, just with the romantic relationship shifted to him and Naomi. The suggestion was so absurd I started laughing. Naomi touched my arm, saying we needed to think practically. We'd given up our apartment, had nowhere to go. If we stayed, we'd have financial stability. I pulled away and called our friend Lauren, voice shaking. I needed help immediately, needed somewhere to stay. Lauren said she was coming right now. I started packing while Marlo kept saying we should talk rationally. Naomi said I was being dramatic, punishing her for finally asking for something she wanted. Lauren arrived with Marcus 30 minutes later. As we left, Naomi called that she was sorry, that she loved me, that she hoped I'd understand eventually. I didn't respond. Lauren's apartment felt safer than anywhere. That first night, I cried so hard I made myself sick. The exploitation was criminal, but prosecuting would be complicated by Naomi's knowledge and complicity. She'd known for weeks and hadn't reported it, had actively worked with Marlo. Any defense attorney would use that. and I couldn't separate my trauma from hers because we shared a body. The next morning, Naomi started texting, apologizing but defending herself. She'd spent 26 years being invisible. Marlo was the first man who'd made her feel seen. I blocked her number. Lauren said gently that we needed to face reality. We shared a body. I couldn't stay furious forever without making my own life unlivable. Over the next week, I slowly started speaking to Naomi again, not because I'd forgiven her, but because silent treatment was killing both of us. Marlo called repeatedly asking to meet. I finally agreed at a coffee shop with Lauren present. Marlo admitted the filming was wrong, said he was shutting down accounts and deleting videos. As for Naomi, he'd developed real feelings but would step back if needed. I told him I wanted him to face legal consequences. He said prosecution would be difficult because Naomi had known and hadn't reported it. He offered financial compensation, what he'd made from our content plus damages. We negotiated a settlement over the next month. Marlo agreed to pay $150,000, delete all content, shut down accounts, and have no contact. Naomi ended things with Marlo after the settlement, realizing their relationship had been built on betrayal. She apologized repeatedly, said she'd gotten lost in resentment. She started therapy to work through feelings about our shared body and her identity. I started therapy too, processing the layered betrayal. 18 months later, Naomi and I have rebuilt some version of our relationship, though it will never be what it was. The innocent trust is gone, replaced by something more cautious. We've learned to talk about resentment before it festers. She's honest when she feels invisible, and I'm more conscious of including her in decisions. We've created new boundaries that acknowledge we're separate people despite our shared body. I haven't dated since Marlo and don't know if I ever will. Naomi isn't looking for romance either. For now, we're focused on repairing what was broken, building a sisterhood that can survive the impossible complexity of being two people in one body. Marlo's exploitation showed us the world will always see us as different, but Naomi's betrayal taught us something harder. The real danger isn't strangers who fetishize us, but the resentment that grows in darkness between people who love each other but don't know how to be honest about pain. We survive by talking now, by naming what hurts before it metastasizes. Some days the wound is still raw, but we're learning to live with scars. Appreciate you watching this far. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story.